Anthology Obscura.
Welcome to Anthology Obscura. I'm Louie, and as always, I'm joined by Sam.
Hello, brother.
And Chris.
Hello.
I thought you were gonna be like, "Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna go in there with the Macho Man Randy Savage."
Hello, brother. Caught me off guard.
Well,
It's funny because he's my brother.
Well, yes, there you go. Literally, it's
Right.
hello, brother. But then I also took it as a wrestling kind of voice. That's what I took it as, Sammy. So
Yeah,
That wasn't.
macho.
Thanks, Louie. Thanks for clarifying.
I have to clarify it a little bit because Chris looked confused. Chris got the DC there, the little DC, the
Yeah,
little,
man.
little
It's
DC
not.
action.
It's not Haunted Hangover.
Sometimes a little Diet Coke
Little DC.
slaps.
I know it's nice
There's
and
no
cold
rum.
too. Woo. Diet Coke with a little bit of rum. What's that from
A
Big
little
Daddy?
bit of rum.
Right? Rumpelstiltskin.
Rumpelstiltskin. But yes, the wrestling there, that being the key word when it comes to this episode we're going to be talking about, and that's the Room 104 episode, Avalanche. Now, Room 104, I think it falls into the obscure category because I don't see anyone ever mention this show. No one. Super underrated. Now, I remember when it came out, I remember hearing about it because Jay and Mark Duplass produced it and created the show. I'm a fan. I like the stuff they've done, like The Puffy Chair, one of their first indie films. I'm a fan of that. Mark Duplass, I always like him and stuff, specifically the Creep movies.
Yeah.
I always remember him for that. You know, that's have you seen those, Sammy? Creep 1 and 2?
Probably not for a very long time now.
Great found footage.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's found footage, right?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
found
It's kind of like that.
great
And
movies.
He's a great actor and producer, director, writer, and all that. So when I saw they were involved with this show, that already reeled me in. I wanted to check it out. And I remember early on the commercials gave me kind of like Twin Peaks kind of strange, weird horror vibes. So I was like, all right, this looks right up my alley. How did you guys hear about this show? Sammy, let's start with you.
So it's definitely obscure because, like you said, no, I don't know anybody who even watches it really. I actually started watching it because one of the drag queens that I followed for a very long time had a feature, like a little cameo episode with Michael Shannon, which I'm like, Michael Shannon's like a phenomenal actor. With Katya, the drag queen, I'm like, this is a really odd pair and I need to watch it. So I did watch that episode, and I will be completely honest with you. In my opinion, they're not all hits, but when you find a good one, a good Room 104 episode, like, it's a really good one. This one featuring Michael Shannon and Katya, I think it was like Russian something. It was something about Russia. Was bad. Do not recommend. Don't watch it.
Michael Shannon? Wow.
Oh, God. Michael Shannon with his Russian accent, and the premise of it was
I'm
just
surprised it was that disappointing
weird
with
and
him.
wild. I absolutely hated it, but I did not let it deter me from watching the entire program, and I did, and there's some really, really, really good episodes, this being one of them for sure.
I agree with you. Not all of the episodes are great. Some of them get a little artsy fartsy. And too artsy fartsy and a little subliminal and kind of strange. So if that's not your cup of tea, I could see people maybe turning this one off. Like, okay, this is an interesting episode, and then like in between every really good one is an oddball one that you're just kind of like,
it goes to so many extremes. This show, some of the episodes are hyper realistic. They're like real problems that we go through. There's nothing fancy. There's no frill to it. And then there's episodes that are hardcore fantasy-like. So it's not consistent. It's not all horror related also. That's important to note. Some of it's like very psychological.
Drama.
But yeah, damn, that episode was bad. I'm glad I don't remember what the name of it was.
Yeah, I remember there being one episode, I think, in this season, the season we're going to be talking about, where it's like a sitcom themed episode, and they make it seem like Full House, but it's all like in the dad's mind.
Yeah.
Yes,
And what's his name
yes.
from SNL is in it? I forget his name.
I remember which one you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yes, I do.
That's a really surreal, strange, weird, like Adult Swimmy type episode.
Right. Adult Swimmy.
That's kind of what I get. Like some of the episodes are just out there and weird. That's
right. And if you haven't watched Room 104, it's anthology. It all takes place in the same hotel room. It's all of the bizarre events that have happened in the same exact hotel room.
Yeah.
That's what the entire show is about. None of the episodes are related.
I think the thing with the show, the one reason why I'd say it falls into like the obscure category more so than anything else, I feel like it was on the wrong channel. I don't think HBO was the place for a show like that at the time that it was on, because it was what, 4 seasons. It ran from like 2017 to 2020, and you're talking at that same time you got Game of Thrones, Westworld, Vice Principals, all the Curb Your Enthusiasm, like heavy hitter shows, and this one kind of just blended into the background more so, I feel like, and
I can agree with that.
I think that it probably would have been more beneficial on like a different kind of cable network, maybe even something like Sci-Fi Channel or something.
Oh,
possibly.
Yeah. FX could have done great with this.
That's what I think. I think FX, because even like a show like Atlanta that gets a little weird and loopy, and I love Atlanta.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of Atlanta and this feel like they're like in the same universe.
They're cut from the same cloth. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. That's a good way of putting it, Chris. But I will say the concept of every episode being in this one hotel room, and you never see any other locations. Whenever a location changes, it's just the hotel room redressed. Yeah. Like the beds are still there, the one bathroom, the sink, the VCR, the TV, it's all there. And it's always this one set in every episode. And honestly, for such a weird show, it had a decent run. 4 seasons.
4 seasons. Yeah, 4 full seasons.
Solid.
Not, short. Yeah. And full seasons by HBO standards is, 10 episodes or whatever it is. But it's a full season run.
One thing you can say, though, because it's on HBO, there are some big name actors in this show. Almost every single in almost every single episode, there's like some major character.
I mean, even in the episode we're going to talk about, I'd say that this person in this episode is, at this point, is probably close or just about on the A-list. I mean, he's in Marvel movies. It doesn't get more A-list than that.
We're talking about Dave Bautista, of course.
By the way.
Yes.
Chris, how did you find out about this show? Didn't even ask you yet. What did you find? Like, how did you find out about it?
I don't even know, honestly. Like I said, it was on HBO. I probably was like watching Game of Thrones, and there was like maybe a commercial for like, new show from the Duplass brothers, which like you said, I like them, so I was going to give it a shot. And then like, I love all anthology series, so I'm going to give that a shot too. So it's just like the perfect storm of stuff that I liked. So, I was going to watch it.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of contemporary anthology shows. Yeah. There's really not many on TV now. Like there's shows that an entire season is an anthology. Every season is its own contained story, but there aren't many
American Horror Story, and at least initially
Horror Stories. But then there's like a spin-off now,
right?
That's going to be
that's like
style. And I think that a couple of like streamers have done more like modern anthologies. I know Hulu had one, and like Love and Robots on Netflix. But you're right; it's not like it seems to be more of like a dying genre.
The Walking Dead is getting one, which to me is odd. so
Tales from The Walking Dead or
how many times can you go scavenge in the supermarket?
See, I'm just
that's over
it. I think that's a bad idea. I
think that's a bad idea too.
I think that's a whole. We could spend hours talking about.
Oh, we definitely can, and I don't want to knock any like Walking Dead fans. I don't want to knock any Walking Dead fans, because we did enjoy it for a little time there.
No, everyone enjoyed it. I did too.
I still watch it.
Yeah, Chris is one of the few people. He's the only person. Whenever there's like the number of viewers, Chris is one of the last
following
ones
the train to
up
the
there.
last stop.
But yeah, that's a weird show to have an anthology show. We'll move on from this because it's just zombies. How they can't introduce other supernatural entities to a zombie show,
right?
Where like another anthology show can literally do whatever they want per episode,
right?
So I don't know, weird choice. But yeah, Sammy, you chose this episode, Room 104, Avalanche, and since this is your pick, hit Chris and I and our listeners with the episode breakdown.
Avalanche is set tangentially in the world of professional wrestling, which I just fucking love. There's so much heart in it. People know it's not real, but they choose to suspend their disbelief. And that, to me, touches on something very similar, which is the nature of personal trauma.
Don't mind if I do. This is season 4, episode 3, Avalanche. I wrote down a wee little synopsis. I'm sorry, I have to read from it because I wrote it down and it read so well. Our story is about retired pro wrestler Raw Dog Avalanche, aka Doug, in this show. After Doug gets into a brutal bar fight where he apparently paralyzed a uniformed doctor, Doug undergoes a doll therapy session to recall the events of that evening. Unfortunately, due to years of head trauma in his wrestling career, Doug has a great deal of trouble remembering just about anything. As the therapy session progresses, more of Doug's past traumas are revealed.
So, since you picked this, Sammy, I want to know why, of all the episodes of Room 104, was this the one you wanted to pick for us to cover? I just find it so interesting. Why?
So there are a good handful of episodes that I was kind of like tossed up with, but I felt like we all would have a lot to say about this particular episode because we're all pretty big wrestling fans.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's the running theme in this
so
episode.
I was like, that's kind of a no-brainer. It's the only wrestling-based episode of
I'm glad you picked it, honestly, because
we've got to do it.
A way to put wrestling into anything.
Sneak it in there. It was perfect.
Anything Haunted
Hangover. There's no
related.
sneaking it in this one. This is wrestling's in your face in this.
Yes, it is in your face.
So I really, and I was like, absolutely blown away by Bautista's performance in this. I was actually pretty surprised. I know that he, like, in particular, he wants to be taken more seriously as an actor, and he's trying to stay as far away from like anything really wrestling related. If I'm not mistaken, I did read a little bit up on him, and he said something along the lines like, if it's a non-televised event, he'll go, but he just doesn't want to be on live TV doing anything with wrestling. Yeah. So I was kind of shocked that he agreed to do this episode. With that being said, after he like read the script, I guess he just kind of like fell in love with the character. It gave him an opportunity to do something a little more raw and emotional. Raw dog. And emotional.
Monday Night Raw.
I read an interview with him where he did initially turn this role down because he said, you know, he didn't want to do, like you said, wrestling associated, and he wanted to branch out as an actor. And his agent was like, Dave, you got to read the script. Like there's a lot of good stuff in here. And he said he got to do a lot of improv, which he doesn't necessarily get to do, especially like, you know, Marvel movies are such a big machine. He probably doesn't have a lot of chance for flexibility, and he said he got to do a lot of improv that actually ended up in the episode, which is really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny because when you think of Bautista, Dave Bautista, I should say, because every time I see Bautista, I just think of the wrestler Bautista. You got to separate them,
right?
You know, he doesn't do a lot of dramatic stuff. Even when he plays Drax, it's like dry humor. He's got like mostly one-liners. It's not like monologues he's being given. The only role I could think of, 2 roles that I could think of where he kind of has a lot of acting and talking and dialogue and speaking is that movie Bushwick he was in. I don't know if you're both familiar with that.
I've never watched it.
It's an action
with Brittany
film.
Snow.
Yeah, it's an action show predominantly, action movie, I should say, predominantly, but there's a lot of acting in it. It's not like him just shooting people. There's a lot of that, don't get me wrong, but
of course.
he's
but there's
actually
if I remember that movie correctly, there's a few like good character moments where you really like sit with him for a couple of moments between all the gunfire and explosions.
Yeah, and the other movie I could think of is the beginning. He has a small role in Blade Runner. What is it? 2049 or whatever. The one with Ryan Gosling, the sequel to Blade Runner. He's got a pretty small role, but it's substantial, and he's really emotional in that. So, like, I always knew that out of the few wrestlers that can act,
he has it in him.
He's the one that has it in him because you can see it, you know. And in this episode, I agree. Like, the dude's breaking down at one point, crying almost, having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
And you can see the emotion in him. Whereas, like, I'll be honest, someone like The Rock, I can never see The Rock.
I don't think The Rock can shed tears. I don't think it's in his body. He sweats them all out.
But is there a movie or a show or anything where The Rock gets, like, emotional to the point of tears?
No. I mean, The Rock he's The Rock in everything.
I guess.
Right. Like, I love me some Dwayne Johnson.
But you know where you're getting with him. He's
absolutely.
Wears, a great
he's The Rock in everything he
every
does.
movie.
Yes.
He's
a t-shirt that's one size too small.
That's
right. I'm pretty sure, like, in the Scorpion King movie, he, like, fucking rock bottoms a guy, like, straight up rock bottoms a guy. So it's not like Batista was Batista bombing people in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's separated. He's made a name for himself separate from his name in wrestling, whereas The Rock kind of used his name in wrestling to get to the acting world.
Yeah, and he carries this entire episode. It's all him. There's not many actors.
I mean, there's him. 5 actors in the whole thing, maybe.
There's the woman playing the psychiatrist. There's the little boy, and then a couple of, like, extras, basically.
Right, the doctor,
tiny
and
little
the
cutaways.
The doctor, and it's really Bautista who does everything in this episode. Now I want to talk about something that I feel is the most important thing in this episode. And just us being wrestling fans, we know about it because it's a real thing, and it's CTE, which is the main, which I'm probably going to butcher it if I try to pronounce the last word, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Yeah, I'm not even going to try. CTE. But, you know, a lot of wrestlers really suffer from that because of years of abuse on their body in the ring.
And their heads, more primarily,
because they take football players suffer from it as well.
Oh yeah,
just
football
all the
players, for sure.
I mean, you can only knock your brain around so often. It's not meant to do that. So you know,
well, they say that's one of the reasons, like, Benoit did what he did. You know, like, was because of CTE and steroid use. But I do like how they incorporated that into this episode and made it believable to the point where, like, he's walking with a cane. He can't remember anything. That's the whole point of the episode.
In the very beginning of the episode, he's trying to set down his toy version of himself, essentially. And he's like, oh, I forgot I can't stand him up. His knees are all busted like mine. Like, he's been kind of through it. And I wanted to look up doll therapy and, like, toy therapy and stuff. I kind of just assumed it's something they use more with children, but actually is used a lot with people who suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's. So I guess this was just kind of like experimental, since he has no memory. I mean, the episode, periodically throughout the episode, it's like he's getting all these stories mixed up with other stories. It's kind of probably the first time watching it, I think I was genuinely confused, like, half the time.
But I think that's the point too. It
is intentional.
It's his story, and because of what he's been through, he's such an unreliable narrator of his own story that you don't know where the truth actually lies. I mean, I'm sure we all took something a little bit different from the episode, which I guess is part of it. Like, you know, they want to have, like, conversation. To me, it was like the doll therapy brought back some suppressed memories of some bad shit that happened to him as a child that then had an effect on him in that bar fight as an adult. That then, and I took it as he got arrested and put in prison for it, because and I took this therapy session as, like, you know, a state mandated kind of thing, like a rehabilitation kind of thing. So but like that could be entirely wrong because you can't trust his narration of events.
Of it.
Yeah.
Right. It was very well done. Very well done for many reasons. For one, we're blindly going into this, right? Looking at this little doll set in this room, and he doesn't even understand what's going on. So we're kind of figuring it out along with him. And you find out, right, later on that it's because of the events that happened in that very little toy room that caused him, like you said, to get into the bar fight. I mean, they say that he hurt somebody. That was a lot of it too. He's like, I'm a good guy. I don't hurt people. I'm not a violent person. It is, trigger warning. There is like a little bit of, it's implied that he was sexually abused.
Right.
We don't actually ever say it, but it's heavily implied that eventually, what has happened to him in the past.
There's a lot of symbolism too, like the suplex.
Yes.
Him
Right.
with the little
With
boy,
the little kid.
where the little kid wants to like try. It was a little weird and awkward. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Like I don't know, there's something weird off about that scene where the little boy wants to see what it's like. Like how do you do a suplex or whatever?
Yes, and the kid
he's doing
at
it, and then
first
he
he's
hurts.
into it. The kid is like happy for it, and then there's that turn. So like to me, I took that as like that was him kind of trying to recall the,
what it was like with his
abuse
father.
experience with his father, right?
But
And it
mixing
just-
the two things together
Right, exactly.
with that and hurting or beating up or whatever the guy at the bar out of frustration many years later.
Right.
Yeah.
It's smart writing using, like you said, Sam, you hinting at the dolls and what this guy's going through. Because because I watched this episode twice, and if you notice, it's like steps. In the beginning, we meet him, we're introduced to the toys. I love how it's actually Bautista's character too. You can tell by the tattoos, moving the toys around, and the psychiatrist. And then little by little, we learn about. It starts getting hinted at the creepiness of the father and the sexual abuse and all that.
Yeah.
Then to the bar. Then to him being alone, which to me it was almost like, did this even happen? Was this all in his head, and him trying to kind of put an end to what happened to him? Because at the very end,
By visiting the room?
By visiting
the room? Yeah.
That's why those mannequins
That's what I took
are
it.
there.
Yeah,
That's how I took
there's-
it.
They use the miniature dolls, but then there's also like mannequins.
Right.
So,
When
and
he
he's beating
suplexes the
up.
kid,
Yeah.
there's a couple of shots interspersed in there where it's the kid and then it's a mannequin.
Yeah.
And then when it's laid on the stretcher, it's a full-size mannequin, and then it's the doll mannequin.
Yeah.
The small dolls, the
Right.
dollhouse wrestling dolls.
Yeah.
And then using the Doctor Destroyer. Is it Doctor Destroyer?
Dr.
or
Destruction.
Dr. Destruction, yeah.
That's a symbol of the father, not
Right.
But also, is it like an old rival of his from wrestling? There's so much jumbled up in there,
Yeah.
and so many layers.
Well,
to,
she
like,
does.
peel
She does
back.
clarify, like as he's coming to
Yeah.
his senses. She clarifies with him, like there's no Dr. Destruction.
Right.
You are seeing that because this man at the bar reminded you of your father. This is what's
Father, you beat
happening,
him up.
right?
Yeah.
Talking about like the dolls and all the visual stuff. Room 104 gets a little too artsy fartsy for at least for us. I'm sure some people loves it, but I love the visuals of this entire episode. It going from the mannequins to the toys. There's even a scene where I think he's like finally like it's coming to his senses, and they have just kind of him with a white backdrop projected on the walls of the room.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And that to me,
this
that
is.
was
I
like,
had like chills. I was like, this is dope. This is really
and
cool.
all of it is just absolutely carried by Bautista. Like
Oh God.
If you were to like, if someone was like, oh, I've only watched Bautista as a wrestler and I want to see him as something else, this is what you're going to show them.
Oh, of
Yeah,
course.
for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
Going back to the room with the dolls, I will say this is a really original way of
Never
kind of
seen
telling
anything
a
like that.
story. Yeah, I can't think of anything that uses dolls and actually has the actors moving them, positioning them to tell the story.
Right.
And then to cut to, recreations, because even when we see him like with the wig, with the bad wig and in his like wrestling outfit, he's still, those are the dolls because he's looking up at whoever.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, just the storytelling. At the end of the day, I think the whole thing is dolls, and the only reality is when we see Bautista with the shaved head, or we see Raw Dog Avalanche, I should say, his character with the shaved head, the glasses, looking aged, and talking to the woman. That's really the only thing I'm confused about, is if she actually existed or not. Or is it just his memory so foggy that he's remembering a therapy session, but then
if you want to go that far, it could be that.
I think that's the point. You can't he, like I said, he's an unreliable narrator. He's right.
It's ambiguous.
He's
in the end.
far. He's so far gone that what is there to trust, and are these revelations true, or are these like things that he fabricated to justify what he did, you know?
Right. Yeah. Right. What happened. And at the very, very end, right? He, like you said, Louis, like there's a point where he looks up and he says hello, because
and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. It's like, wait a minute. So
cries.
Is this a therapy session, or is he just in that room with him, with his own memories and his own thoughts?
Yeah. To me, it's almost like an allegory for CTE. And like how you don't, like you can't, like a person, I'm guessing, obviously none of us have it, so we don't know, we can't relate, but I'm assuming when you have it, you can't tell what's a memory, what's really happening, and you know what can happen, I guess. You know, you don't comprehend past and future because your brain's so scrambled and shot. So that's what I took it as, because when he's calling up in the reenactment with the dolls, even though it's him, you see Raw Dog Avalanche, you see Avalanche with the little boy. He looks up, and then at the end he looks up again but gets nothing. That's why I think none of this was actually happening. He's just confused about things. Like all this stuff happened to him, but his brain is so messed up that he can't tell what's real and what's not.
Everything
he's just trying to relive this pain.
Is muddled. Yeah,
well, and it's the trauma.
Experiencing it through his eyes and through his story. So we get
and what happens
the picture
with,
as he puts it.
With what happens with people and trauma and PTSD, and so to speak, it stays very suppressed in the back of your mind. So, and I'm not a psychologist, but it stays suppressed in the back of your mind. And that's the whole point of therapy. So when you have had that in the back of your mind and then have just gotten the crap beat out of you for many years, it's really hard to recall something like that. I feel like Bautista, I believe that he really took his time and really respected this character. I can tell and I can believe it. And Chris, you were saying that he improv'd a lot of it, like the little moments where he's just kind of screaming and crying and spitting and not thinking about how he looks. So, you know, you kind of forget, you know, who this guy is for a second. I'm like, oh wait, this is Bautista?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely can't say enough like good stuff about him in this episode.
Yeah.
And I will be the first to admit, I've never like, you know, he's cool, but I was never like, yo, I'm a big fan of Bautista's acting work. Like he's there, he does some dumb movies, but in this one, like you actually care about the character that he is portraying.
Yeah, you don't really know much about him besides him being a wrestler.
And in a 24-minute runtime, you know, like that's
and he's a type. He is a prototype. Like his character is like a Hulk Hogan macho man kind of character, which we like grew up watching and understand very well.
Yeah, I'm sure Bautista probably based this on an old wrestler he met. Right. Had to have been. He's from that world, so he's met the Ric Flairs. He worked with Ric Flair in Evolution. Right. Come on, like, you know, all these older wrestlers.
He has the ability to bring that authenticity there. Yeah.
And you know, and to go to the ending of the episode, they never outright say what happened. It's implied.
No, it's implied. It's implied.
You know?
He kind of says some stuff along the lines of like, you know, I used to come to this room with my dad after he volunteered at the clinic, and we weren't allowed to talk about what we did there.
Right.
We weren't allowed to talk about what we did there, and nobody helped me. That was something that he repeated a lot. Nobody really helped him. He was like a little nerdy kid, and nobody helped him. So
it's subtle.
It is very subtle, and I'm glad they don't flat out say it, because that's too much for me personally, or show anything. Too much for me personally.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that was enough. That was enough for me.
It's a tasteful way of handling this type of material or this subject matter in a way, which I think is smart, because you don't want to go full blown like showing things, because there have been movies that get a little too close.
I think also weird shit that it can be. I mean, obviously, it's showing something like that is very triggering to people that it's actually happened to. But I feel like it's also kind of it takes away from the authenticity of the episode and makes it more like shock value kind of stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which
is really all you're going to talk about in that case. Then
Exactly.
I do want to talk about, there's really not much funny in this episode at all. There isn't anything comedic about it.
Which is why I was skeptical about talking about it, because I'm like, we like to shoot the shit a lot and crack jokes. Like, Louis, the first episode that you chose to cover, I was like, oh, we can make fun of their hair and the bad acting. And I'm like, oh, this one's a little touchy. But I also, like, you know, I studied acting for so long and theater and shit. So I was like, you know what? I think this is something that would be nice for a change.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did it.
There's not much to clown on in this episode.
No, there isn't. There's no shit talking allowed for this one. I do want to say, though, I do like how they turned the hotel room into a bar.
I just like a couple of neon signs and mirrors.
Yeah.
There was like
I forgot about that.
Up. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was like beer bottles all over the place, a jukebox, I think, right?
Yeah.
And chairs.
There was a whole wrestling ring in the hotel room at some point.
Which is symbolic, if you know what I'm saying.
Right,
right, exactly.
That the bed is a wrestling ring. Come on, like that's kind of insinuating.
And also,
shit, you know,
you know when people are like, let's play doctor, and it's like euphemism for something else, and then so like the dad is a doctor.
Yeah.
And the little boy maybe liked wrestling, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna wrestle." You never know.
Like sketchiness to everything that happens.
It's all like it seems like a complicated episode, but it's really not. Like, that's what happened to him. It's sad. It's good storytelling. I've never, like you said, Louis, I've never seen anything like that. Like, there were so many episodes done in the same room. It's like it gets a little exhausting sometimes. This was a really, really cool way of turning that room into something else.
Yeah, they really, definitely really cool. they were able to kind of just, it goes from like the bar setting to like Bautista being in it, and then like the doll, the miniature version of it. They utilized the hotel room really well. Is there anything you guys didn't like about this episode? Anything?
No.
I mean, I
Chris?
the only thing I and this is just the wrestling toy collector that I was growing up. Those didn't look like any wrestling toys that I'd ever
terrible.
seen. They were like poor They looked like Barbie dolls. That's not what wrestling toys look like.
Chris, I'll agree with you.
I think they were supposed to be like, they were supposed to be not like action figures. I think they were supposed to be like what the psychiatrist gave them.
Yeah, she made a little jacket for the doctor, and she wrote 911 on his panties.
They're not wrestling clothes that I'm used to. That's the only thing I didn't like. I wish they would have leaned in and used an actual Batista action figure. That would have been fucking cool.
No, they gotta buy that.
I don't. They would have had to ask Vince McMahon
sign the rights for Mattel or whatever. Yeah.
No, he's not doing that. Vinnie Mac isn't doing that. He's not approving any
There's
WWE
no chance in hell.
No chance in hell. You gotta get that check written, sent his way. Here comes the money.
Yeah, I don't know that the Duplass brothers had that kind of money.
No, I'm being honest. Like, I really don't. There's nothing I didn't. If there was something I didn't like about it, I would have not chose it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of.
I'd say it's one of the top 5 episodes of the show.
Oh, the wig. Am I gonna complain about the wig?
No, but I think the wig is supposed to look bad
because it's the toy.
Doll. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I took it that way too. I was just cracking jokes. I kind of took it that way too, because when you look at the doll, his hair is like mad crazy.
Yeah.
But the thing with
Dr. Destruction has like a mullet.
it's bad because you're not used to seeing Bautista with hair too. Like that's also part of
That's
it. He
another
looks
thing.
goofy.
Yeah.
Batista hasn't had hair like 20 years.
Right.
So
He's rocking it,
It's been a
though.
very long time. Whatever he rocks,
rocking it.
he's in phenomenal shape still. Like, so
I'm gonna say now, like he's gotten some plastic surgery or Botox or something. He does not look as good anymore. His face does not
Dude, he's
Recently?
In his
move. Recently, like fairly.
I was gonna say
recently.
that
I saw-
episode, he looked very good.
No, he looks great in the
Yeah.
episode. I saw like
Yeah.
a Instagram post and his lips are all like.
Oh, recently. Well, this is 2
Yeah,
years
no,
ago,
like
so
really
yeah.
recently. Yeah.
Whatever, let him do
He's in his 50s, man. He's got to,
Let him do it.
Yeah, he's got to,
Botox- the Botox
gotta look
just
good,
looks
man.
weird.
Tell you what, he's in phenomenal shape, man. You can
Listen,
tell he's
Chris,
not.
Oh, he's
I'm
not
gonna
on
do
cream. He'd
Botox
cream
till
any
the
of
day I
us.
die.
So,
All right.
what are your closing thoughts? Let's hear, Chris. What are your closing thoughts in this episode? We're gonna end with
Oh,
Sammy.
I
since
said
that's your pick.
it. One of the top 5 episodes of that show for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If someone like is like, oh, I want to watch Room 104, like what episode should I watch? This is absolutely one you're going to recommend.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think if you've never heard of this show, let's say you're listening to us, and you're like, and more than likely, honestly, there's a 75% chance if you're listening to us, you've probably never heard of Room 104, or maybe heard of it but have never watched it. And I agree with you, Chris. This is probably a good one to start with. It's intriguing enough, dark enough, well acted enough. It's the cinematography is great, the music is great, everything about it is great. It really, and it's a good example of what the show is.
Right. I was just
'cause
going to say it encompasses the concept
Yeah.
of the show well.
Using the hotel room in an original way, having a known actor in it to be the main character in Bautista. And just everything about and telling a story that you're confused about, but then can pick up the pieces in your own way to figure out what's the message behind it, what's it trying to tell you. So it is smart. It's a smart episode, and I agree. It's definitely a good introduction to Room 104. Sammy, what's your closing thoughts to wrap up here?
Well, even if Room 104 is not something that you'd be into, like if you're a wrestling fan, 100% you're going to want to watch this episode. Then maybe, you can branch out and watch the rest of it. But this is definitely something worth watching. Like you said, good acting, good cinematography, great concept. Also kind of opens up the whole CTE and, bring it to light, like what sexual abuse can do to somebody. Really, it's a good one. I was a little emotional the first time I watched it. I'm sorry.
No, I totally
I'm a
get
baby.
it. Totally,
I was a
I
little
totally get
emotional.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people will watch it and get emotional because it's a dark subject matter.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
using the world of wrestling, it's still pretty bleak. It's not like you're going to have a good time afterwards. You're not supposed to feel good about this, but very
You'll
well
enjoy
made.
watching Batista for sure.
Yeah, you're not gonna
So-
come out of it like fucking. Hey, I want to
Yeah.
read about CTE. I'm pumped.
No,
Yeah.
no.
That's not how it goes.
Yeah.
So on a lighter note, to close off, I have one thing to tell you guys. Batista thumbs up, not Batista thumbs down for this episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Batista thumbs
Like
up.
this?
Batista thumbs up.
Batista thumbs up. We're not turning heel here. Batista
No,
thumbs
no.
up.
No, he was turning face at that
was
time.
turning
That's when he turned on Evolution.
Also,
there you
Batista, if
go.
you ever hear this, we absolutely love you. And you should tag us.
Come on the show, Big Dave.
Man, Batista. Big Dave. Deacon Batista.
Is that a real memory? Did something happen to that little boy?
Try to remember.
For me, this episode is more about the discovery for him of something terrible happened to me, and I'm not going to be able to just beat the shit out of large men in order to keep this at bay. I'm going to have to take a look at it and figure it out.
I am not a violent person!
So that was Room 104, Avalanche. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Haunted Hangover. And check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Haunted Hangover 31.
And if you can rate and review us, that would be greatly appreciated.
And remember, the best cure for a hangover is
More booze.
catch you guys later.